to the Web3 Prof Podcast.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm here with Jaeyun Noh, who is the CEO of Mod Studio. Jay, thanks for being with me here today.
Thanks for having me.
So Jay, let's jump right in. Can you tell me just a little bit about how did you get into Web3?
Web3. It sort of happened accidentally. So prior to Web3, I was mostly focused in Modio, which is a game engine for Web2 mostly. But then one of my friends, she noticed the potential of how this can be applied to Web3, and she actually recommended me to apply to this Web3 accelerator program called Alliance DAO. And at the time, I haven't heard about it, and I really didn't think about the angle.
What year about was this?
This was back in 2020.
Okay.
Sorry, 2021, I think. Yeah. But yeah, she recommended me to apply for this accelerator, and I didn't think too much about it. I just spent 10 minutes filling up this application. And then I didn't think much about it for months. And then, might not have been months, but like for weeks. But they got back to me and they wanted to interview me. And I realized that this program's actually hyper competitive. It's very hard to get in. And they liked what I was building. And we all saw the potential of how we can apply what I was building to Web3. And by the way, what I was building is basically, it's a game engine, but it's more like Roblox, where it's really easy to make multiplayer games that you can play with other people. And because you don't have to worry about the server hosting or orchestration or net coding aspect of it. And then we thought, hey, this can be Roblox for Web3.
Right.
Yeah. So we all saw the potential, and then I became the cohort. Start over. I became part of the 7th cohort for Alliance DAO.
Yeah.
And then from their program, which was extremely so yeah, their program was extremely beneficial, and they had so many people just full of Web3 knowledge and sharing that with us. It just gave us such a strong exposure to Web3, and I just been going really hard at Web3 since then.
So you, at that point, you'd not like bought Bitcoin or anything like that. You didn't have exposure, and because that's kind of how a lot of people get into it, right? They're like, they start trading crypto, and then they're like, oh, this is an application for my business that I could use.
Yeah, so I have some stories about that. I have purchased Bitcoins in the past. Sadly, I sold my Bitcoins too early. I'm sure I'm not the first person to share this kind of story. Right, exactly right. But I have played with crypto in the past, and I actually have been trading NFTs as well.
Okay.
Prior to joining the program, I degened in cryptodes.
Cryptodes.
Yeah, cryptodes. They were pretty fun to trade with. I don't know. Should I be sharing stories about
sure, that's
how
kind
much
of
money
interesting.
I made and all that? Like,
oh yeah, no, I mean that's the most interesting part. How much money did you make?
It wasn't too much. It wasn't like in the 5 figures and whatnot. But I mean, it was just mind blowing. You're buying these like toads, pictures of frogs for $2,000 each, which was insane to me at the time. But you bought it, and then now you're selling them for like $20,000 a month later. Like, what the heck, right?
Crazy.
Mind blowing, man. And then, that inspired me to launch my own NFT projects as well. But it didn't really go well because we were just like getting to the end of the bull run.
Right.
And then, the bear market, just everybody stopped trading NFTs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Mod Studio. Who are you guys? And you've touched on a little bit about the gaming engine, but, kind of in summary, what do you guys do?
Yeah. So Mod Studio is the game engine for building virtual worlds. And when I say virtual worlds, we're talking about these places where people can hang out in real time, and then there's player persistent built in. So if you're jumping from one map to another, your state is all stored, and all that stuff comes off the shelf. You don't have to worry about building it all from scratch. You can build stuff like this using Unity or Unreal, these other types of game engines. It's just going to take months or years to build all the infrastructure to support that, right? So we're orders of magnitudes faster and cheaper to build out this experience.
Is that what a metaverse is?
Yeah, I consciously avoid using that term.
Yeah.
Just because it's not the most reputable term nowadays.
It certainly isn't.
So now we use the term virtual worlds or multiplayer games. Yeah.
Okay, great. So what are some advancements that we've seen in Web3 in the gaming industry that differ from the capabilities of a Web2 platform?
That's a great question. Advancements, you say, because I have a conflicted opinion about that. Is advancement something that is, would you consider something that is speculated as something that is an advancement? Because
no, I don't think so. Because I think that's the nature of Web3 is like we have all this speculation of what we can do in the future, but there's just absolutely no way it currently can happen. And so, or maybe even when you answer this question, like be clear on what is speculative and what is real, if there is anything that is actually real.
Right. So I will give you a very personal answer to this, and I'm sure many people may disagree with this, and that's totally fine. But I don't really believe in certain speculative features about Web3, such as like interoperability, for example. A lot of NFT games, they advertise how, like we support these NFTs are going to be interoperable and you can use it from like in a game A to game B, right? I just don't see that as the, like a needle moving feature, should I say. I mean, so interoperability isn't new. You see this in games like, for example, like Counter-Strike. You can use the items from the Counter-Strike Go, Global Offensive, and you can transfer much of these items to Counter-Strike 2. That's there. They don't use Web3.
Right.
It's just supporting a database, right? Like you don't really need Web3 to deliver these features, So in fact, I think integrating Web3 can be even more costly, having to build that. Now, I understand the whole appeal of having a decentralized database that stores, these assets and that you have this permanent ownership over them. I get that's exciting and all, but like that's never been a problem as far as I can say. Like that's never been an issue with the Counter-Strike. Like players don't complain about that, right?
So let me ask you a question then. So like owning your assets has been pitched as a really big feature of Web3, and the fact that I can trade my assets on an open public market, and if maybe it's an in-game asset, that is a problem that gamers have faced, and that when you leave a game, you leave all your assets there, and there's no way for you to monetize these things that you have acquired over a time period. Is that a positive feature?
So let me make a clear distinction though. So what you're talking about right now, being able to sell assets in a secondary marketplace, I would consider that not interoperability,
right?
But more of a transferability.
Yeah.
And to me, that actually is exciting. Interoperability, not so much.
Yeah.
But transferability, yes. And I agree for that very reason you stated. Because yes, it just takes that burden out of you. Not just from the player, but from the game developer side, where I don't have to build my own marketplace, right? That all I gotta build is sort of like NFT export import feature,
right?
So the players can just export it and trade it at any marketplace they want to. That actually to me is quite exciting. That takes a lot of burden off of both parties involved, and that actually I would consider as one of the most exciting features about Web3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the kind of the true ownership aspect of Web3, and when you look at this, are you looking at these assets as fundamentally NFTs?
I would say it is unnecessary. I would say why, right? This is actually a typical question I ask to any gaming companies that are rolling out these Web3 features. The first question I always ask is like, why? Is this an actual problem that needs to be solved, right?
Right.
I think if there's certain value attached to this, the actual inherent value that are attached to these items, that there would be people who are willing to trade it, then yeah, I can see how there's a reason for wanting to make these as NFTs. But
right.
If these are type of like common items that doesn't really require, like the trading aspect, don't see the value in having to do that. Yeah.
Right. And so do you see that Web3 gaming is a problem searching for a solution in different ways? Or an actual, a solution searching for a problem? I said that in reverse. Is it really just fundamentally a solution that's looking for a problem in maybe interoperability or composability like you spoke about?
In most part, yes. I mean, it's not a black and white answer. I mean, there are problems that, such as being able to, transfer these NFTs in marketplaces, and there are certain problems that they're actually solving. They as Web3, but for the most part, I would say, I mean, this is again my personal, potentially probably contrarian belief among the Web3, enthusiasts. But yeah, I would say that for the most part, the games, they're not really solving. I mean, they're not really games as what I would personally philosophically believe as a game, a good game, let's say, right? I mean, there are different types of games, right? So it depends on the game too, actually, now that I think about it. Like if you're building more of like a gambling game, then I think there's a lot of problems that these NFTs are solving, or the Web3 components are solving. Whereas if you're building a game that is actually genuinely fun and engaging, I feel like there aren't that many values that Web3 is bringing. Yeah. And I'll tell you why. I think it's because of the misaligned incentives between building a good game, and there are misaligned incentives between the game developers and the players, I would say, when it comes to Web3 and gaming, because as a game developer, you're not really rewarded for building a fun and engaging game in Web3.
What are you rewarded for?
I feel the most rewarded gaming projects in Web3 are the ones that are best at marketing themselves. Whether, they market, how amazing the team building the game is, or their tokenomics and roadmap. And how much they do emphasize a lot about, they don't talk about it explicitly, but they do emphasize a lot about the ROI aspect of the games, right?
Like the increase in value of the token that
tokens
is
NFTs,
coming with the game.
Exactly. Yeah. If you stake in this game, buy own NFTs, right? One day you're going to be able to sell it for higher price.
But it's not ever about the actual game itself. The game isn't
right?
very fun.
Rarely
so why do Web3 games suck so much?
I mean, that inherently is one of the reasons, like that misaligned incentive of making a good game and benefiting the players out of it. Sorry, misaligned incentives between. Sorry, I can't phrase this very clearly right now.
The developers and the players.
I would say it's a misaligned incentive for building a fun, engaging game is what it is. You're not rewarded for making a fun game.
So how in Web 2 are developers rewarded for making a fun game that differs from Web 3? Like, why do you guys have fun games?
So the way that Web 2 games are rewarded, financially anyways, at least, isn't so much from the transactions themselves. I mean, yes, there is a significant monetary transactions that come from in-game purchases and whatnot. But you can sell games for, out of the store, like one-time purchase from Steam. There are subscription models. There are different ways of doing that. But on top of that, there's another huge reason, I think, why Web 2 games aren't as good as Web 3. And that's because it's really just lack of talent pool compared to Web 3. So if you look at the games that are in Web 2, the Web 2, the gaming industry as a whole, it's like, what, $200 billion industry. And if you look at Web 3, the highest grossing game in Web 3 is like, what, Axie Infinity? I think that the most they did was like somewhere under a billion revenue, which is amazing. It's crazy, but I mean, if you consider the power law, I mean, they're probably like the one of the only, and
Right.
the rest is probably much lower than where they're at.
Certainly.
Right? So we're talking like barely a percent compared to the entire gaming industry, and it's not that Web3 games are like trying to be a bad game, but I think building a good game is inherently a hard thing to do. Even if you're trying to make a Web2 game, 99% of the games are gonna be pretty bad, right, to begin with. But when you consider that there's only so many game developers who are driven to make good games, the chance of having a hit game out of that is much lower, I think. And having a poor reputation among the game developers certainly doesn't help attracting good talent to the Web3 industry.
Is that currently a problem?
I would strongly say so, yes. It's something... I mean, if you go to this website called itch.io, which is probably one of the most popular game asset marketplace, where a bunch of indie game developers go and purchase assets. Many of these asset makers actually explicitly state that these assets cannot be used for Web3 projects.
Why is that? Why do they not want them to be used there?
I mean, I haven't talked to individuals to figure out exactly why, but I would speculate because they feel that Web3 projects are scams for the most part.
Yeah. And
they just don't want to be associated with that, right?
Sure. Okay, that's fascinating. So at this point, there's not a lot of good. I mean, you've really only identified one good thing about Web3 gaming, and that is kind of this fact that there's a tertiary marketplace or secondary marketplace for you to sell stuff. Are there any other features that you think, okay, that is a great aspect of Web3 gaming, or that could be, as we talked earlier, a speculative perspective?
So I'm trying really hard.
You don't need to try hard. If it's not apparent, then maybe there is nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying really hard to believe in Web3, and people like, okay, why don't I talk about, I'm trying to answer your question, but why don't we talk about some of the things that people are very excited about right now, and why I don't think it is, it's going to work out. For example, like people get excited about, fully on-chain games. And I get that the idea is very exciting. I get that the idea of permanence is exciting, that everything and anything you do in this decentralized database is gonna stay forever, and then even like hundreds of years from now they're gonna be there. That's exciting. I get that, right? I also get that you don't have a central governing body that can, that has a full control over the game. That this is all sort of like, community-driven gaming. Like, that's also exciting. But okay, so one thing at a time. The permanence, like, yes, it's exciting, but how does that really contribute to the fact that the game's gonna be fun and engaging? Like, I don't get that, right? Like,
oh yeah, I don't think it. But aren't there other things that the consumer doesn't necessarily understand, but in the long term benefits them in gaming?
Such as?
I don't know. Does the game user, the player, do they need to know all of the benefits today? And maybe the permanence of the data actually over the long term will be beneficial to them. I don't know how, because I don't get it either.
So,
and maybe the answer is no, Jarrett. That is not right.
So what consumers actually perceive isn't... Sorry, I'm trying to phrase this in an effective manner. But okay, so what consumers perceive as benefits may not necessarily impact the longevity and the fun and engaging aspect of the games, I think. Like for marketing aspect, yes. I mean, if the game looks fun and exciting on the surface level, like a box in the retail store or their page on Steam, marketplace, if it looks great, if a consumer perceives that, then it can drive sales. I get that, but the longevity of the game, the actual fun and engaging aspect of the game is actually rarely, I think, perceived from the surface level. More often than not, the consumers themselves don't even know why the game's fun. They just keep on playing it. They keep on coming back. And the fun games actually are like heavily retention driven. These game studios, they really care about the percentage of the people that come back to the game the next day, after 7 days, and after 28 days. This is like for them, that this is like the single most important North Star. So yeah, I don't think it's really that important how consumers perceive these features or values. But going back, like I just don't see like the again, like how permanence can impact the retention or the fun and engaging aspect of the games. And the another aspect is just having a decentralized database. Like, I get that there's no singular entity that can control, and that's great. That sounds very like virtue signaling in a sense. Like it's all like, like it's not like owned by this one evil like dictator, right? But at the same time, is that really a problem? How does that contribute to the actual fun aspect of the game? Like, in fact, if anything, like all I hear is how clunky some of these on-chain games are because of the transaction time, and like just it's not. And actually, are you familiar with the Wolf game?
No.
So it's a game on Ethereum, and it was actually quite popular at one time, and they had the issues. I heard. I'm speculating because I didn't actually participate on it myself, but I heard from friends who actually participated in own NFTs, own wolves and sheeps and all that, right? That they had a glitch, like an exploit in their game. And this resulted, I don't know exactly the amount, I would imagine like millions of dollars just becoming like worthless because they couldn't patch it fast enough. And that's a real issue. Like, I don't get why game developers are actually putting the full game logic on chain, because it's just such a huge risk and liability, being like having to put everything out, and like the amount of time it takes to patch it. And not only that, like once the damage is done because of the permanence aspect of it, right? Like everything's in, like it's all out, and people all own these, and you can't like take it back from them,
So do you think that the reason that some of these developers are building games on chain or in Web3 is just because there has been some hype around it and it was an opportunity for them to make money, rather kind of like a get rich quick, get in, get out, take advantage of the hype, especially in the last bull run when Facebook changed its name to Meta, and the metaverse was a big focal point, and it was all kind of built on the hype?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest motivator for a lot of these gaming projects were not actually about building a fun and engaging game, but it was mostly for that monetary gain, which is, like, I understand it takes money to build these games, but I think a lot of these people actually vastly underestimate the amount of effort that goes into building these fun and engaging games. It actually, going back to one of the flaws that I think is in building games fully on chain, I think a lot of these game developers underestimate the number of iteration that it takes to actually build these games, right? Like, when you're building a game, a lot of times you don't even know why you're building. Like, if you hear talks of some of the successful game developers, a lot of the features are actually accidental. They don't plan this ahead. They just like build it. They get user feedback. They tinker with it, and some like these are like the real life scenarios of it's a feature, not a bug. These things are very common.
I've heard that saying before. It's interesting.
Yeah. And these things are very common, even in like AAA games, right? Good games require tremendous amount of iteration. And the way I see Web3 games are, they focus so much on the actual launch, and they don't think about the whole iteration aspect.
Can you tell me about any notable examples of successful Web3 games or platforms in the current landscape, or maybe in the last bull run when gaming was a big deal, and what makes these projects stand out?
So it depends on how you would measure success. If your measure of success is to build a sustainable, long-lasting, again, fun and engaging games, I think there are very few Web3 games that would fit that criteria. If your definition of success is being able to successfully fundraise your game and sell all your NFTs, oversubscribe, then there are many NFT projects that were able to accomplish that, right? So that being said, if we're talking about fun and engaging games, in my opinion, the successful games are obviously Axie Infinity. They're vastly successful financially. Again, I believe that they were making like over $1 billion a year at one point, which is amazing. And then there are a few others. I believe sorry, if you're looking at games like Star Atlas, if you're looking at games like the Wolf game, if you're looking at games like Ember Sword, these are also quite popular, famous games. They were able to completely, sell their NFTs and tokens and etc. Their games are not played or they're not available yet, right? They're still in development. So I guess success. If your success is fun and engaging games, I actually don't know that many aside from Axie Infinity.
I was trading Star Atlas tokens, maybe three or 4 years ago, and it was like months away from the game launching, and then it just seems like it just didn't ever happen.
Right.
I think it's as far as I know, it's still like in process, and I don't understand. Like maybe it's normal for games. I'm sure it takes a long time to launch games, but there's kind of like this hype expectation that it's just around the corner, which drives the token price.
Exactly.
Which maybe makes the developers rich or the major token holders, the venture capitalists, the investors wealthy.
Yeah.
Did you ever see this this idea of kind of play to earn, where people were playing Axie Infinity in developing countries, and it was supplementing their income? Have you heard this narrative?
Yes, of course. I'm very familiar with it.
So I think it's a fascinating idea, right? Where there was a short documentary that came out on YouTube, and it was like all these people in the Philippines who were maybe shop owners or working for small local businesses, making very little amount of money, but they have a cell phone and they could play Axie, and the value of the token that they were earning while playing the game was going up in the bull run so much that it supplemented their daily income, and so they could actually make money doing this. And I actually have had a couple students who paid people to play the game for them in the Philippines, and they had a whole crew of employees that professionally played Axie Infinity, and they gave them a cut. The barrier to entry in the Axie Infinity game and many other games is you have to buy the NFT to get in, and the NFT might be expensive. So the question is, why would someone work for you and play video games for you if they could just do it themselves? Why would they give you a cut? And the answer is, well, the barrier to entry was so high that they couldn't afford the NFT to get into the game. So you buy it for them. You effectively kind of give them a scholarship or a loan or buy it for them and then get them to play. But as soon as the bull market of kind of 2021 ended, that idea effectively evaporated quickly, right? Mm-hmm. Is there a future for that? Is that a reason to play a game, or is that just a Ponzi scheme?
I mean, I don't think I'm really in a position to say whether if it's one or the other, but I'll share my personal opinion about this. I just think the model itself is hard to be sustained. I mean, yes, Axie Infinity, it's a fun game, and they have a very strong brand behind it. But inherently, if you think about this from the most fundamental perspective, like, where is the value being created? Like, this whole play to earn philosophy, like, where is the value being created? Like, if you're a creator, if you're like, say, a content creator on YouTube, you're creating entertainment, right? And so your value is generated from people watching the videos because you're creating a fun content, and these people also happen to be watching ads, right? So the marketers, there's that flow of money. But if you're looking at Axie Infinity and at the other P2E games, where is that money coming from? These people who are playing the games, like, why do they deserve to earn money, right?
I mean, I ask you if it's a Ponzi scheme. You hesitate to answer, but yet you then fundamentally explain that it is a Ponzi scheme. Right? Isn't that what you're saying?
I never said that.
I mean, it feels like you're saying that.
I never said that. And look, I respect the game developers. I respect the fact that actually launched the game. And again, it's a fun game, and they have player base, and that's a very extremely difficult thing to achieve. So, it's a real game. And this is million times better than some of the people who are simply just selling NFTs and just rug pull, right?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the other extreme of this, right?
Yeah. And look, it's a game development or building a company is an iterative process, So maybe they just haven't figured it out, or maybe they figured it out and I just don't know, right? But I'm just simply throwing a question here.
Yeah.
Where is the value generation? Like, why do these players deserve money?
Yeah.
For playing the games.
I mean, I feel like they don't, but I'm not a gamer. So here's kind of the ultimate, and maybe this is kind of the wrap up question, Jay. So you have a gaming studio. You have plans on your roadmap to Web3ify aspects of your platform or something. But you don't really speak that positively about Web3 gaming. So why is it that you're kind of like looking to introduce aspects of Web3 into your company?
So we are game first, and far distance second would be Web3 as a feature.
Mm-hmm.
And I am excited about Web3's potential, as again, like the transferability aspect is very exciting to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to build a marketplace.
Yeah.
And people can export their in-game items, their lands, and being able to trade this in whichever place they want, and just providing this free market experience to our players. That's very exciting to me, right? But that's not the determining factor for the fun for me. For me, the most important aspect of the game is fun.
Yeah.
And that Web3 features, the Web3 features that are perceived by the industry right now, I don't think they're gonna be the needle movers for making the game fun, right? It's not that I'm trying to say anything negative about Web3. It's just some of the things that have been widely speculated, I just don't believe in most of them. Like, why? My question is always why. Like, you can already deliver all this in Web2. Why are you advertising as Web3? And it does raise my eyebrows when people try to market themselves as being like on chain and we have this interoperability and all these features. Therefore, like, buy our NFT collection or whatever. It just, I don't know. It doesn't give me the good taste in my mouth. Yeah, when I see that. But no, I think I am excited about Web3 in general as a technology. I think there's lots of benefits that we can get from it. It's just it's got the terrible reputation among the game developers, among the gamers, among the YouTubers and other types of content creators because of so many sad incidents that has happened over the years. I have high hopes for it, and in order for Web3 to really thrive in the coming future, I think it's got a bit of a reputation management cleanup work to do.
How big is Mod Studio? Like, how many people are using the games that are built on your guys' platform? Can you give us information like that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're a small startup. There's about 10 of us, mostly engineers, and me and my co-founder. The project's been going on for over 5 years now. It's got about 10,000 daily active users, about over 200,000 monthly, so it's still quite small. About 200 new games are being created every day.
200 a day?
A day, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that may sound high, but if you consider companies like Roblox, their daily new game creation, I think, is well over 50,000.
That seems like way too many things for people to care about.
What do you mean?
Like, who is playing that many games? Like, most of them no one ever touches.
So people are creating games, right?
Yeah.
But I say a high majority of them are never played by other people.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Or they never go anywhere. This could be games that are just someone trying to make a new game and just never really decide to put efforts into it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are just people who are trying to create their own world. And again, most of the people give up, but eventually, a few of them will persevere and get somewhere.
That is incredible. I mean, yeah, a couple hundred games and 20 or thousands of users a month sounds like a lot to me. I think that's impressive what you've built, Jay. It's great to have you in the conversation today and learn about some of the perils of Web3 gaming, because I think sometimes we do hear about just kind of the positive spin of the narrative where it's like, Web3 game is the answer to everything, or that Web3 gaming is the kind of first step of major onboarding crypto users, because, gamers are tech savvy. So there's this natural progression where they'll start playing Web3 games and then start buying Bitcoin and things like that. And I think you paint the picture that's maybe a bit more pessimistic, which is, I think, an important perspective for us to have.
Yes. I actually, you brought up some very interesting point here. I'm very optimistic that games could be a determining factor when it comes to bringing the mass adoption of Web3 to Web2 users. It's just that how things have been done so far, sadly, by the industry, it has been very short-term thinking.
Right.
People were doing things for their immediate financial gains, and it has done a very sadly, it's done so much damage to the industry as a whole, and just people stop believing in Web3 in gaming for the most part, right?
Yeah.
I was at GDC last summer, and I forgot exactly what company it was, but it was there was a booth, a big booth by this Web3 gaming company, and their slogan is Web3 games suck. They're fully aware of that, right? And they're trying to put a spin to it, and kudos to them for doing that. But it's just how things are in the industry, right? And in a sense, I feel like whenever I try to talk to Web3 companies for collaboration or trying to get them to actually make a fun game, they don't really care as much as you think. And I feel like I'm the only one taking the crazy pills, trying to make a fun game, right? Because I guess I don't assume bad intention from people. I think what they're genuinely trying to do is actually have a successful, fun gaming project, right? But I just think that a lot of these people, the interests, the goals aren't aligned, and it's sad to see. And honestly, I do hope for the best for Web3, and I know I sound pretty negative about how the current state of things are, but I'm an optimist, and I do hope for the best for Web3, and I do look forward to implementing Web3 features within our platform. It's just there's a lot of cleanups to do, and there's a lot of uphill battles to be fought,
right?
To get to the point where people are gonna start accepting Web3 in game industry.
That's great. It's really great to have your perspective, Jay. I appreciate you coming in and chatting with me here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Yeah.